Berserk is one of the most influential pieces of media of all time, with DNA being found everywhere, from other anime and manga to video games, films, and even music. The late creator of the series, Kentaro Miura, is well known and remembered for not just stunning artwork, but his complex character writing, dense world building, and ability to push the idea of what a story could be forward. Berserk wasn't always that one leather-bound book you could buy at Walmart, however, with a long, dense history with messy experimentalism. The early years of this story are home to one of the most misunderstood arcs in the history of manga. Around 1984, an 18-year-old Miura had crafted a prototype for what would become Berserk, a knight dressed in black carrying an ungodly huge sword. Despite the main piece already being there, Miura had neither the experience nor industry support to serialize something like this. Shonen manga at the time didn't have any demand for a dark fantasy series of this type. Before Berserk was serialized, Miura worked briefly as an assistant to George Morikawa, author of Hajime no Ippo, and collaborated with Burenson, writer of Fist of the North Star, on a short series called King of Wolves. Despite this project being criticized at the time and largely forgotten about nowadays, this collaboration mattered, giving Miura a foot in the door with the publisher Hakusensha, the publisher who would give Miura's series a chance at serialization later in 1989. Miura has gone on to say that by the time Berserk began serializing, there were no long-term narrative plans. The first story arc to his manga can best be described as experimentation. Tone, violence, and the idea of a fantasy protagonist all being stretched past points previously attempted. This experimentation resulted in the strange phenomenon that would be known as the Black Swordsman arc. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call Black Swordsman the most overlooked and disrespected arc in Berserk. In every anime adaptation so far, it was either shortened dramatically or skipped over entirely. The two most likely reasons for this are, firstly, its placement in the timeline. Chronologically speaking, Black Swordsman occurs after the Golden Age arc, the most popular arc in Berserk. This means that most adaptations see Black Swordsman as optional, supplemental material to Golden Age, not integral to that story by any means. Secondly, Guts is completely unlikable for a majority of this arc, arguably all of it. Black Swordsman presents Guts at his cruelest, angriest, and most self-destructive. Hours of reading and years of serialization before the audience has any idea why. This has led to many people dismissing Black Swordsman as edgy for edgy's sake, missing the point of the arc entirely. The emotional context to his actions is withheld on purpose, gaining meaning later through Golden Age. Black Swordsman is an introduction to a cruel world with an even crueler protagonist not meant to be fully understood in first read. This is an arc made to be reread. Miura was intentionally misintroducing Guts, showing off a misunderstood protagonist at his absolute lowest, consumed by rage, hatred, and self-destruction. Spoiler warning for the Black Swordsman and Golden Age arcs. I can't recommend enough reading these arcs for yourself, especially if anything I've said so far sounds interesting. The whole manga is available online, and Golden Age ends around chapter 94. It's not the quickest read in the world, but definitely one of the most rewarding. With that out of the way, let's discuss the hidden gem that is the Black Swordsman arc and how poorly it's been treated over the years. To fully understand Guts, it's important to understand the role of Puck. Puck is originally introduced as the comedic foil to the stoic and cold Guts. Puck follows Guts around, much to the swordsman's dismay at first. Even after Puck helps him escape from torture and heals him using magic, he insults the elf. Guts remains cold and closed off to the one person who's helped him so far. Puck even notices Guts' rage, sadness, fear, and something even darker underneath Guts' words. Even though he pushes Puck away once more after this moment, we saw a glimpse under the facade of the Black Swordsman. This marks the beginning of an interesting subtextual theme seen throughout the manga, the Black Swordsman versus Guts. The Black Swordsman is an emotional lie created by Guts to appear incapable of emotion. Puck's first few moments with Guts are integral, because they show the way Miura wanted Guts to be read in this arc, a killer who's hiding something deeper. Puck provides the audience with a surrogate for the story, empathetic and wanting to understand Guts, but continually pushed away. Puck and the audience are pushed away for a reason, however. We threaten Guts' emotional isolation and his single-minded quest for revenge against the Apostles. Upon rereading, we can also see a refusal to process trauma, blindly killing and self-destructing to try and make himself feel better. Guts' refusal to accept Puck goes deeper than comedic effect. It reinforces the audience's view of Guts as irredeemable, incapable of empathy or kindness. The first major confrontation in the arc against the Snake Lord backs up the idea of Guts as a brutal, unflinching killing machine. The fight begins by displaying his raw strength, splitting an armored man in half and beheading his horse with a single one-armed swing. This is a quick, brutal fight against a huge demon, though it lacks any emotional weight. Guts doesn't know this apostle and only kills him because he's just that, a demon. There's no hesitation, no reflection after, just brutally assaulting it, torturing it, and walking away. Puck cries at the demon, screams for help, but Guts is completely unaffected, his face even being obscured other than his one eye. This fight reinforces the lie of Black Swordsman, a man fueled by rage killing monsters. It's a great spectacle and sets the violent tone for future confrontations, but it lacks any substance. This fight trains the reader to misread both the story and Guts. The Snake Lord was pure evil and was disposed of like fodder, but this power fantasy facade only breaks down more as the arc continues. A bit later on, while traveling with an older gentleman and his daughter Colette, Guts leads a pack of demons to the group. Colette ends up getting possessed by a demon after being killed, reanimating and visibly alarming Guts. This moment of weakness and hesitation leads to the young girl stabbing Guts before being quickly sliced in half. There was no hesitation once he was struck, and the moment didn't linger on long, the only real reaction to it being Guts vomiting after killing another demon. Guts has only been shown killing monsters and people who deserve it, which makes this kill stand out. Colette was still visibly human and a child. Not even Guts feels good about having to kill her. The scene helps the audience understand a bit why Guts is the way he is. He's violent and unflinching because anything else gets you killed in this world. His heart is closed off and cold because the second he trusts someone, they either die or, worse, become a burden he has to kill. His one moment of hesitation so far almost got him killed himself, forcing him to cross a moral boundary. Guts isn't a cool, dark hero. He's a man who was forced to cross moral absolutes because it's the only way to survive. His goal of revenge has set him on this path, and he is dedicated to it, shown by the carnage that follows. This reframing from cosmetic brutality on the Snake Lord to moral brutality on Colette reframes the series as something darker than a Splatterhouse comic. There is moral complexity to Guts' actions and real consequences to crossing certain lines, making his journey of revenge even more devastating. The most important characters in this arc are the Count and his daughter Teresia, being introduced a bit later on. The Count, a cannibal apostle and ruler of an area Guts visits during this arc, is the first enemy to be given true emotional depth. The Count used to be a human with a wife and daughter, waging war against a foreign pagan invasion. After a long pagan hunt, the Count returned home to be met by his wife in the center of a demonic orgy. Slaughtering everyone involved except for his own wife he couldn't bring himself to kill, the Count was driven into a deep despair. From this despair, he sacrificed both his wife and his own humanity to become a demonic apostle. He continued to live while appearing human, placing his daughter on house arrest and hunting down more heretics, only to mutilate and consume them. The Count still has a deep love for his daughter, despite her complete rejection of him, her wish to be freed leading to disdain for her father. Teresia and the Count's relationship are important for the final battle of this arc. The Count also serves as an emotional mirror to Guts upon reread, the fall due to love and betrayal being well known to Guts. Guts' battle against the Count is far more drawn out and dramatic than the other apostle fights in Black Swordsman. With the audience's prior knowledge and exposure to the Count, an emotional tie has been built, a first for this arc. This emotional tie is further supplemented when Guts takes Teresia as hostage. This is the first fight with an apostle who feels human. Guts crossing another moral line by exploiting the bit of humanity left in the Count. This wasn't spur of the moment either, Puck commenting on how he clearly planned that. Guts brutally tortures the living remnants of the Count, forcing his own daughter and Puck to watch. This torture feels very different from the spectacle of the actual fight. This is fully personal, showing the reactions of both Teresia and Puck. This one scene shifts the story from brutal action to deep psychological horror and tragedy. The Count and Guts are both humans still in touch with some level of humanity, but both torn apart by unbearable tragedy. Miura doesn't announce this, Guts doesn't give any speeches about morality, and the tone stays consistent. The only thing that changes between this fight and the previous ones is context, even more so upon rereading. The Count's veil it activates, the same cursed item he used to sacrifice his wife and humanity. The tragedy of the Count is all about the level of humanity he still has. Guts forces him into facing damnation at the hands of the God Hand, knowing he will be unable to sacrifice his daughter who has done nothing wrong to him. This goes further than the physical cruelty he enacted with torture. Guts has created unknowable psychological torture through understanding the Count. After the Count's soul is dragged away and the Vortex world disappears, Guts and Puck have a final confrontation with the tortured Teresia, the core and the point of Black Swordsman. Teresia was just revealed a horrific truth about her mother and her father, watching the latter get dragged into hell all because of one man. She wasn't happy with her life before, but it was better than this. She'd rather be dead. Guts throws the girl a knife and tells her to kill herself. He's become just as bad as the people who traumatized him, forcing another person to endure the same suffering he has. The survival of Guts and the path of revenge he's devoted his life to will cause nothing but suffering for everyone around him. Trauma inevitably reproduces itself, and survival means more curses than the brand Guts has. Not only has this path of self-destruction caused new pains for Guts, it's reinforced isolationist and suicidal worldviews. This shifts the entire misintroduction of Guts as a ruthless maniac to a tragic man destroyed by consequences, from spectacle to psychological tragedy. The arc closes with a few panels devoid of words, putting Guts' true emotions on display as he limps away. Black Swordsman is a bad introduction to Guts because it doesn't tell anyone who he is. Black Swordsman is a phenomenal exploration of what trauma has reduced a broken man to.
I'll let you live so you can take a message to your master for me. Tell him the Black Swordsman has come.
Black Swordsman is an uncomfortable exploration of what trauma and revenge can turn a man into, and you rarely hear anyone talk about it in anime discussions. There are 3 different anime adaptations of Berserk, 4 counting the 2022 Memorial Edition expansion to the Golden Age 2012 and 2013 film trilogy. All 3 adaptations treat Black Swordsman as expendable material, a consistent theme and clearly not an accident. If it's even included in the adaptation, only specific scenes are taken from the arc and only used as an ignorable prologue. Black Swordsman is an arc that demands a lot from a new audience, trusting the reader to have enough interest to understand the emotional weight later. This was clearly too much of a risk for every adaptation, the audience for anime being much larger than the source materials, so the arc is cut down or skipped entirely. Unfortunately, neutering or ignoring Black Swordsman doesn't just remove content, it removes context. When moments are compressed or removed, 3 major problems appear. The intent behind the arc is lost. What's left of the story is a broken mess. Guts' cruelty becoming shallow edginess, and fights lose any weight that was there. Certain moments remain only for shock value. Compressing Black Swordsman doesn't make it more digestible, it makes it dishonest. Chronology without context. When a series jumps straight to the Golden Age arc, it jumps straight to guaranteed sympathy for Guts. This ignores Miura's intent with Black Swordsman. You're not supposed to have sympathy for Guts or understand him during the arc. This initial misunderstanding creates greater emotional weight upon a full understanding of Guts. The chronology of the manga is intentionally skewed to create depth later. Tone. Black Swordsman sets the tone perfectly for the rest of the manga, using intentional pacing, moments of restraint, and built-up moments of silence to ease an audience into caring about the world. The world it sets up is brutal and unyielding, but it's strangely human, with strong emotions and reactions being portrayed perfectly through the art. The adaptations either rush past the violence, trying to get the Golden Age, or wallow in it, unable to see past the spectacle. This fundamental misunderstanding of Black Swordsman has led each adaptation to fall into at least one of the 3 major problems. 1997's inclusion of some story beats in the first episode is the most confusing, as the show's finale is left unfinished, the final fates of the characters unshown. This is the major problem with the 97 anime. It is respectful to its source material, and it's remembered fondly as such, but is fundamentally incomplete. Golden Age is given a classic, sincere adaptation, but its Achilles heel lies in its first episode. A single episode is given to show Guts' crusade against demonkind and Black Swordsman. In this one episode, Guts is introduced and fights the Snake Baron. Puck is omitted completely, Colette's tragic death and the fight against the skeleton demons is ignored, the Count and Teresia aren't even present, and the purpose of the Bayolet is left out. A few scenes are combined. Colette is present in the bar scene at the beginning, and the Snake Baron was in possession of the Bayolet. This episode portrays Guts as much more of a hero, saving Colette and killing the evil Snake Baron, Guts even citing the people the Baron killed as a reason for a lack of mercy. Where manga Guts ruthlessly soaked in the murder and torture of his victims as an act of revenge, anime Guts fights for what's right. This isn't a man tortured by his past, just a hero who fights people that are evil. 1997 falls into failures 1 and 3. The compression of this arc removes all thematic weight, and unintentionally removes the dark hero aspect of early Guts, turning him into an arguably moral character. The tone of the arc is completely off as well, softening Guts' cruelty and cutting out essential scenes. The manga allowed for the violence to breathe, but this anime rushed past any morally gray moments in exchange for spectacle without substance. 1997 fails as an adaptation of Black Swordsman for two main reasons. The first being, the one episode softens the source material, reframing Guts as a tragic hero immediately and misunderstanding what the purpose was of Black Swordsman. It mistreats the source material out of caution, to protect the audience from disliking Guts before they can understand him. The second reason being there's one episode, the content of Black Swordsman being rushed over quickly to move to Golden Age. While the first anime adaptation of Berserk reduces Black Swordsman out of caution, the next adaptation removes it completely. The Golden Age film trilogy makes the intentional decision to ignore everything that happens during Black Swordsman. The goal was to adapt Golden Age efficiently in a cinematic context, treating anything not completely necessary for understanding it as a standalone story as expendable. The preceding arc in the manga, while not fundamental in experiencing Golden Age, will alter the audience's perspective of Guts. Chronologically following the series has its own set of perks, allowing the audience to be spared of the destabilization before meaning. This, however, loses the thematic tension and importance Golden Age brought to the manga, becoming a self-contained tragedy rather than a delayed explanation. The films allow you to mourn Guts, but don't show the consequences of the events that take place. The film trilogy doesn't misinterpret Black Swordsman, deliberately bypassing it in exchange for a more traditional, tragic structure. Golden Age still hurts and scars, but without context it no longer threatens. It's obvious the trilogy falls most in the problem too, lacking the context needed to understand the full importance of the story presented. While the films erase Black Swordsman, the anime adaptation beginning in 2016 does something a lot worse, stripping the arc of coherence. Berserk 2016 doesn't even slightly understand Berserk. Putting aside animation quality, poor CGI integration, and awful sound design, the main issues are tonal illiteracy and a lack of commitment. On paper, 2016 should have been the closest thing Berserk would get to a proper adaptation at the time. Fresh off the heels of the film trilogy, the new studio handed the rights could continue the story chronologically without cutting events like in 1997. The dark tone of the film trilogy, especially the final film, showed that the uncomfortable Black Swordsman arc could absolutely work now while animated. 2016 cuts events, rushes through the arc, and undercuts the discomfort, allowing for about 3/4 of an episode to be focused on the arc. 2016 switches constantly on how the audience should feel about Guts, featuring abrupt cuts and jarringly awkward comedic beats and sound effects. While Guts' harsh treatment of others is technically there now, it isn't allowed to linger and feels more present for comedic effect. Cuts and event jumping rob moments of their consequences and, ultimately, causes the arc to lose its meaning. The entire removal of the count removes the thesis and the point of Black Swordsman alongside the damage Guts' rage is capable of. Guts doesn't feel like a dangerous, unstable beast. He is morphed into a performative, shallow plot device used to get from one action beat to another. His rage feels more like an aesthetic than a corrosive, consuming poison. Where 1997 compresses Black Swordsman out of caution, 2016 shortens it out of impatience. Events such as the eclipse and Colette's death are dangled in the audience's face to tell, not to show. The slow and careful buildup of moral violation into tragedy is turned fully into noise. ignoring all restraint the manga proudly displayed. 2016 embodies all three problems, completely misunderstanding the intent behind early Guts by not even showing his cruelty. It misunderstands the importance of the original chronology of the manga by dangling the exact events of Golden Age in the audience's face early on. Worst of all, the desolate, cruel tone of Black Swordsman is gone in exchange for lightning-fast pacing and meaningless violence. The Black Swordsman arc has been mistreated over the decades, not due to poor quality in the content, but because of the difficulty in its honesty. The source material is unyielding in its refusal to present Guts as a hero or a victim, showing the effects of trauma before it can be explained or redeemed. By stripping away the core themes of the arc, every anime adaptation has turned Black Swordsman into an empty spectacle, and transformed the subtextual depth into a powered fantasy. In this disregard, the point is missed. Survival doesn't make someone a hero, and suffering doesn't give moral clarity. The arc shows a man who experienced hell, giving pieces of that hell to other people. A tragedy intentionally only understood and felt when given context later. Miura's vision for this arc wasn't as the beginning of Berserk's violence, but the first time Guts is confronted with his purpose and its cost. In conclusion, read the manga, it's really good. Go read the manga. Go read the manga, it's really good.